Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name is Josh. Welcome to the Red Pill Project's Daily Dose, live with you Monday through Friday. Hope everybody is doing well out there. And I'm even wearing my storm. It's got dirt on it. I got my storm hat on into the storm, although it's called the final countdown tonight. Friday night, I hope everybody is rocking and rolling. We're going to do the news. We're going to go through everything that we see going on, and we might even get a little fringy tonight, bringing back some of that good old conversations. It's always an interesting fucking day, isn't it? Donald Trump did not get the Nobel Peace Prize. Are you surprised? Are you surprised that he didn't get it? I'm not. I'm not one bit surprised. But you had Maria Corina Machado did get it. Now, who is Maria Corina Machado? Well, she is a Bush implant into Venezuela. She's the opposition leader out there. And, you know, it's hard to say that Venezuela has a dictatorship when you have an opposition leader, right? It's almost like she's just allowed to run and operate. But she did call up Donald Trump. And she did say that, hey, I'm accepting this on your behalf because you're the real master. But listen to Donald Trump even talk about this. This is actually pretty epic. This is why Donald Trump is the greatest of all time.
The person who actually got the Nobel Prize, Qalt today, called me and said, I'm accepting this in honor of you because you really deserved it. A very nice thing to do. I didn't say then give it to me though. I think she might have. She was very nice, and I've been helping her along the way. They need a lot of help in Venezuela. It's a basic disaster. So, and you could also say it was given out for 24. And I was running for office in 24, all of the transactions that we did in terms of closing. But there are those that say we did so much that they should have done it. But I'm happy because I saved millions of lives, many millions of lives. And speaking of somebody that saves lives,
Here we go. So interesting what he says there, because we're helping her. Isn't that interesting? As in, who's going to lead Venezuela after Maduro? Is it potentially going to be a Trump-supported plan? I think that it possibly could be. Now, this is the interesting part about the Nobel Prize. There's a scandal, and it's still unraveling. Hours before the Venezuelan opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado, was officially crowned the winner, her odds on the prediction site Polymarket suddenly exploded from 3% to over 70%. Weird, right? Especially since she wasn't even listed in the favorites. Even weirder, a mysterious new user named 6741 dropped $1,500 betting on Machado and another $1,085 betting against one of the top contenders, Sudan's emergency response rooms. Moments later, her odds skyrocketed, and by morning, boom, she's the winner. Now, the Nobel Institute is in panic mode, saying they're investigating a possible leak. The prize is decided by 5 people sitting in Norway, 3 former politicians, a human rights advocate, and a foreign policy guy. Apparently, they can't keep secrets, as well as a random Reddit mod. Just a day before, Machado's odds were less than 1%. That's interesting. Now, when the Nobel Committee was asked about why they didn't give President Trump the Nobel Peace Prize, the Nobel Committee chairman responded essentially saying, we only give the award to people of courage and integrity. Politically motivated just a little. Jesse, you didn't miss anything, I assure you. Now, if you haven't been on the Twitterverse, the Twittyverse, remember when I used to have the shirts Twitler? If you haven't been on the Xverse today, you might not have noticed it, but Dark MAGA is rising up. And what do I mean by Dark MAGA? I'm talking about all those panicans out there. Oh my God, Trump's going to start World War III. Oh, I voted for him. I didn't vote for this. You remember this? I mean, Iran and then Israel and all of this stuff. It's continuous. See, these people are coming out of the shadows because they don't really support Donald Trump. And it's in the midst of fear and panic that they turn on him immediately. And they'll even contain it like, I love Donald Trump, I swear, but this is just a really horrible move. Sure you do. Today, this was about an announcement, and this is the problem with the 124 character news blast that go out on X. It was blasted all over X that Qatar is going to be opening a military base in Idaho. And Dark MAGA, the Panicans, lost their shit. Oh my God, Qatari money! Ah! So MJ Truth kind of summed this up very well. And he is spot on right here. The U.S. Department of War has authorized Qatar to build a training facility at Mountain Home Air Force Base in Idaho for the F-15QA pilots. Okay. For starters, this isn't a sovereign Qatari base, but a hosted training contingent under U.S. control. The U.S. will have full control of the base. It is a U.S. base already, and it's simply a facility for the Qatari pilots. Okay. This is very similar to the Singapore F-15 training at the same base since 2009, the Dutch F-16 pilots in New Mexico. We also provide training for Qatari pilots, military personnel in Florida, notably the Tyndall Air Force Base. Alliances matter in the Middle East, not just from Israel. Qatar's $12 billion F-15QA purchase requires U.S.-based training for compatibility. Mountain Home's infrastructure suits this perfectly. Say it with me. Reciprocity. The U.S. operates El Udeid Air Base in Qatar, CENTCOM's hub, extended in 2024 and critical to anti-ISIS missions. Also, Qatar played a key role in the Gaza ceasefire mediation, which prompted a U.S. security guarantee, with this facility cementing ties. And that was despite the fact that Netanyahu attacked inside Qatar. What the hell? That's funny. Never mind. I'll anybody wants to laugh later, I'll tell them later. Qatar played a key role in the Gaza ceasefire mediation. Okay, so despite the fact that Netanyahu attacked inside Qatar, potentially trying to sabotage the progress. The fact is, this is a routine for U.S. alliances. Think German pilots at Holloman Air Force Base or NATO exercises in Texas. It enhances joint defense, boosts Idaho's economy, and counters the radical proxies within Iraq. The bottom line is President Trump knows what he's doing, as well as Qatar is going to completely build the facility, pay for it all, and the U.S. government and the military will control it wholly. It's a pretty damn good deal. So all these panicans out here, what they did, and I'm telling you, this is exactly what they did. They read a fucking headline and lost their shit. Laura Loomer's out there reading headlines and going, oh my God, Qatar! Oh, not Qatari money. This got to the point where the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, had to come out and put a public statement out there. The U.S. military has long-standing partnership with Qatar, including today's announced cooperation with F-15QA aircraft. However, to be clear, Qatar will not have their own base in the United States, nor anything like a base. We control the existing base like we do with all partners. So, I'm glad we summed that up. Now, a lot of this hinges on kind of Qatar's participation in the peace talks in the Middle East. And Donald Trump stated today that it's not just Gaza that we're going for peace in. It's all of the Middle East. And, you know, that's an interesting statement because if you go back to yesterday when Donald Trump was talking about, actually, I'll bring this post up. There it is. When Donald Trump was talking about Israel, and he told Benjamin Netanyahu that you can't fight the world. Think about what he's saying there. Now, do I believe that radical Islam is a threat? Yes, hands down, 100%. How do you eliminate radical Islam? You change culture. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. The only way to change what radical Islam is to change culture, generational. Stop war, westernize, implement new cultural ties. That's the only way that you're going to stop the severe, fundamental, radical Islam. That's it. You got to stop the war. It's the first point. You can't stop radicalization with more warfare. It doesn't work like that. More warfare produces more radicalization. I think that that's one thing that was really difficult for four-star generals in the United States military in the early 2000s to really grasp and understand that you can't stop radicalization by more warfare or by 20 years of war. Trump asked Netanyahu, why are you so fucking negative when Israel tried to nitpick the conditions for the peace deal? Trump did something no president has ever done. He cornered the Middle East into making a deal. Biden said, don't, and everybody did. When Trump says don't, then you don't. Thanks for the rule, that's the rule even for Israel. The Trump doctrine is making money, not war, and he deserves a Nobel Peace Prize for it. I agree. That was Jesse Waters on X earlier today. Now, there is a clear redefinition of what it means to be an American leader right now that's happening. Now, the Biden administration is coming out there saying, like, oh, Donald Trump stole our peace plan. Who gives a fuck? You had 4 years to do something with it, and you did nothing. You built a platform off of Gaza that sunk in the water. And it cost billions of dollars. Donald Trump spent $100 million on aircraft flights across the ocean and people going out there and really negotiating that brought about a ceasefire to the Hamas tragedy, or the Gaza tragedy, the Hamas-Israel war. Now, how did Donald Trump, as Jesse Waters says here, corner the Middle East? It's really easy. He promised them a better future. I mean, it's really that simple. What did Donald Trump do to the Middle East to get everybody to come together and say enough is enough? He promised them a better future. He brought them into the big game. He said, hey, the United States is going to be the world capital of crypto mining and cryptocurrency. We are going to develop top-of-the-line artificial intelligence, shit that you can't even imagine. What I'm going to do for you, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, everybody who wants in, I'm going to allow you to invest directly into that, to get a piece of that pie. And you know what they said? Sign me up. We will throw our money over there in heaves to be a part of that, because they see the future. You know, it was Pakistan and Qatar that helped to negotiate the ceasefire between Iran and Israel. But that was proxy through Donald Trump. In Iran, you haven't heard shit from them. Now, is Iran going to step up and do something? No. Iran is in the same exact position that Israel is in. And that's one of the major key points to understand here. How did Donald Trump get Netanyahu to stand the fuck down? He surrounded them with American weapons. He surrounded them with $1 trillion worth of American weapons. He ensured that Erdogan in Turkey and Egypt and UAE and Saudi Arabia, Jordan, all of them came together and they said, Israel, stop or we're going in. And then Donald Trump made defense cooperation agreements with them and made massive defense deals with them for hundreds of billions of dollars. And Netanyahu goes, oh, he's not playing around this time. I might want to back off. And see, I think that in the Middle East, they understand as well that the only way to get rid of radical Islam is to change culture. And in order to change culture, you have to stop the warfare. And if you're continuously propagating new warfare every few years that lasts years on end, you're never going to get anywhere in the concept of peace. But Donald Trump is playing this game like a fucking chess master. President Erdogan, we will protect Palestine at every cost. We will swiftly deliver the humanitarian aid on our ships waiting at Egypt's El Arish support to Gaza. The sooner we can deliver as much aid as possible to the people of Gaza before the weather turns cold, the better job we'll have done. Of course, we are all well aware of Israel's poor track record for failing to keep its promises. I said I gave it 2 weeks, right? From now on, what matters is the agreement being implemented to the letter. We will also put our hands under the stone during the implementation process. After 2 years of heavy bombardment, there is immense destruction and rubble in Gaza. We will fulfill whatever role falls to us in clearing these and rebuilding Gaza. I want to emphasize the following. The cost of returning to an environment of genocide again will be very heavy. Just as Turkey has always stood by the people of Gaza in the struggle and negotiation process, from now on, we will continue to support our Palestinian brothers and sisters with all of our means. Now, this is kind of crazy because the U.S., Jordan, UAE, Turkey, they're going to go in there and they're going to rebuild Gaza. And when Donald Trump was asked about this today, he says, we're not just going to rebuild Gaza. We're going to rebuild the entire Middle East. We're going to bring peace to the Middle East, and we're going to invest over there. Now, I want you to think about this for a second. Imagine U.S. investors, U.S. private companies beginning to build infrastructure out into the Middle East. Billions, if not trillions of dollars being invested into a sector of the world that now builds up tech centers and global infrastructure and hospitals and communities and real estate. Now, many people are like, oh, capitalism's evil. Well, guess what? You don't bomb your investments. You don't bomb the shit out of your investments. You don't. Who owns the big defense corporations? The same 5 or 6 different companies around the world. And if they're investing in the Middle East and building out infrastructure throughout the Middle East, do you think they're going to go to war in the Middle East? Absolutely not. They're going to find a way to talk it out because they don't want to bomb the shit out of their investments. See, Middle East peace was never necessarily about people getting along. It was about making it to a point to where there is no more compromise. That we have so much invested, literally, in the areas that war is just not an option. U.S. troops arrived in Israel as ceasefire holds in Gaza. U.S. officials have confirmed that American troops have begun arriving in Israel to monitor the ceasefire. So this comes off yesterday, where it was announced that 300 U.S. troops would be entering Israel. And the Trump department, Caroline Levitt, came out and said, no, this is not wrong. They're going to be coming from CENTCOM, it's diplomats, it's U.S. personnel. No, it was troops. And they're entering Israel. I want you to see that for a second here. There's U.S. troops in Israel. That's kind of interesting, isn't it? I wonder if that's kind of like an insurance policy. Baby, don't fuck up. We got troops there. Now, old tan cheeks here. This woman was not happy saying President Trump's name. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit more here in a second. And you're going to understand what I mean by old tan cheeks here. Let's play this. You're going to love this one.
It's a really significant first step, and I really commend President Trump and his. I really commend President Trump. I really commend President Trump and his administration, as well as Arab leaders in the.
Yeah, I really commend President Trump. You know how hard it was for her to get up there and say that? I don't give a shit. But do you understand what that took for her not to make that face? On a side note, you ready for this one? Where are all the lefties who were screaming about justice for Palestine and an end to the genocide? Are they going to come out and commend President Trump and thank him for doing something that Joe Biden couldn't do? Where is the left? Why are they not out there celebrating in the streets? By the way, the Free Palestine movement, it's over. It's done. It just ended in one fell swoop. All those paid fucking protesters, what are they going to do now? Now think about this. All the lefties, free Palestine, stop the genocide. You guys going to thank Donald Trump for that? You guys going to come out and go like, oh, I got to give credit to President Donald Trump. He stopped it. There's no more people for the first time in 2 years. Nobody's died. Not a fucking word. Crickets. Because you know what? They didn't get their talking points in email this morning. They didn't get their memos. How many lefties have you seen out there right now on X? Oh, good job, President Trump. You did it. None. Because it doesn't fit the narrative of their psychological warfare campaigns and their radicalization of generations. That's why. Trump will be headed to Cairo, and then he's going to Egypt, then Cairo, and then he said, I think that's where we're going as opposed to a place of the signing. And we have a lot of leaders from all over the world coming. They've been invited, and then I'm coming back, and I believe it's Tuesday night for Charlie Kirk, a friend of mine, a friend of all of ours, a friend of a lot of people right here, and we're going to be giving him the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is the highest honor you get outside of the Congressional Medal of Honor. Good. So he's supposed to be going to Israel, but now he's not going to Israel. He's going to Egypt. I don't think you can do, so sorry about that, but I don't think you can do closed captions with a live video. I don't have that ability here. Sorry, Dee. I wish I could help you. Let me see actually on YouTube if I can go in here. Yeah, closed captions will be on the replay because that's something that they do. I don't do it. I don't control that. So sorry, Dee. I wish I could help you on that. All right. So, yesterday he was going to Israel, but now he's going to Cairo for the signing. Isn't that interesting? American troops entering Israel. Trump was going to go there, but now he's not. He's instead going to Cairo. And then he's going to come back, give Charlie Kirk Medal of Freedom. Even more interesting. What else we got on our radar today? The Trump administration has confirmed thousands of federal employees received a reduction in force notices today across at least 7 departments. These are not furloughs. These are terminations, thanks to the Schumer shutdown. You have 315 employees from the Department of Commerce, 466 from the Department of Education, 187 from the Department of Energy, 1,200 from the Department of Health and Human Services, 442 from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, 176 from Homeland Security, and 1,446 from the U.S. Treasury. I think all of those were primarily from the Internal Revenue Service. And I think there's more to come. Russ Vought, the Reaper. Pretty sure there's a lot more to come. Antifa and anti-ICE rioters are getting their asses handed to them right now. And what we're about to see unfold with all of this is going to be very, very interesting. I have not gotten any updates from any contacts on when Insurrection Act is going to be enacted, but I think that we know it's all coming. Trump said the other day, when talking to Pam Bondi and Hegseth and all that, he was asked about labeling Antifa a foreign terrorist organization because they have massive international ties. And Trump says, is everybody in agreement? And they all said, yeah. And he said, okay, we're going to do that. We're going to get that done. So when that executive order is actually signed, that opens up a plethora of new legal processes that the Trump administration can actually start doing. And this is where shit is really going to hit the proverbial fan. This is where actually the legitimacy of the Insurrection Act comes into play. And if you want some information on that to kind of look how that all fits together, and I gotta plug myself in some of this, right? I gotta plug myself. I got a really good Substack, really popular Substack. If you want to check it out, and by the way, we're live on Substack right now. For some reason, it's not playing on my side. Is Substack not playing? Hold on. Looks like Substack is frozen. Okay, there it is. Yeah, so we're live on Substack. So for everybody out there, you can watch our show live on Substack. It's also on the Substack app. But we do everything from QD codes to nothing can stop what's coming. It has begun. And I know it's really small on here, but let me blow it up a little bit. And this is the legal framework for what you are seeing right now. And we're talking about information warfare, legal war, multi-domain campaign. This is how it's all unraveling right now. So what brought this blog about right here is we did a DEFCON 0 episode, myself and Alpha Warrior. And I told him, I said, I found some shit. And what I found was actually pertaining to a lot of different Q posts that says, how do you get military intelligence basically having authority over all 3-letter agencies? And there's a certain legal process that is combined that brings that about. And I said, well, that's interesting because the director of national intelligence is Tulsi Gabbard, who's still an active reserve lieutenant colonel, but she has not resigned her commission, which she was supposed to, but she hasn't. So what if she is that military intelligence counterpart that's overseeing all intelligence agencies? Now, who's the one actually making the criminal referrals? Tulsi Gabbard. And what prompted, so then what happened, we talked about that in the show, and then we got a phone call. And I'm not going to tell you who the phone call was from. It's not who you're thinking. It's not it's not a general, but it's somebody that is very well connected in that circle and someone who knows what's going on. And that phone call basically said is like, you guys are right over target, but there's a few more things you have to look into. And I started looking into the direction that that person sent us. And that's where this blog comes about from. And it goes into the lawfare and legal architecture of how the Trump administration is waging war on the deep state, on the globalists, and their assets and proxies around the world without actually declaring war, and why the Insurrection Act actually plays into it. So how do you get into this? Well, you can see it scrolling there on the bottom. But if you go into, and by the way, as of recently, all of our new Substacks are actually posted on X as well as X articles for our premium subscribers on X. Right? But if you want in the Substack, redpillproject.substack.com, redpillproject.substack.com, that's where you can find this. These are also on X, but not all of our past blogs are on X, just because we only got monetized on X recently. But for premium subscribers on X, you can get all those articles and you can get all the videos that we do on these. So just wanted to put that out there. All right. More to come. We're going to get into China here in a second because this is going to be a really important conversation when we get into the China part. China. Let's talk about China. So Trump came out today and says, I haven't canceled my meeting with President Xi, but don't know if we still will have it. So I would assume we might have it, but they hit the world with something that is really not anything that people are going to do, and it was shocking. This is what Trump said today pertaining to Xi Jinping and China. Now, I'm going to go back and see if I can actually find this post. Find this post. There it is. I found it. I found the post. Shit. I didn't think it was going to be that easy to find. You are learning, my young Padawan. You are learning. All right. Let me pull this post up. This was posted on September 3rd. Okay? September 3rd, 2025. Bit of a long post. The China power shift. This is going to be very important to remember, people. Has Xi Jinping been removed from power? OSINT and human chatter suggests Xi Jinping has been reduced to a figurehead with CCP collective leadership and PLA handling the real power. Now, this is open source intelligence, human intelligence, as well as, I'm going to put it out there, Miltel. So this came directly from military intelligence in Southeast Asia. I'm not going to give my sources away. Legitimate. This was in September. Rumors circulating that Xi Jinping has been removed from real power inside the CCP. These rumors circulated in the summer in China, but more recently confirmed to me by a source in the U.S. military intelligence operating in Asia. It is speculated that he remains a figurehead while the Politburo Standing Committee plus the PLA leadership quietly run the state. Examples of this in China: Xi's appearances in the People's Daily headlines dropped over the summer, while Li Zhong and Zhao Lijian gained coverage. Xi skipped key working level meetings, leaving Xi Guang to open the World Economic Forum Summit in June. Massive PLA purges, Admiral Miao Hua, Defense Minister Li Shangfu, and Rocket Force leadership point to loyalty tests and power consolidation around Xi, not by him. If true, this is the biggest CCP power shift since Deng quietly stripped Hua of authority while keeping him as a ceremonial head. The rumor circulated that Xi was removed due to his inaction towards Trump and the humiliation suffered by this inaction. Trump's tariff shocks plus trade pressure rattled Beijing's economic stability. Trump's push to reclaim supply chains and shipbuilding threatened China's leverage. And publicly calling out CCP influence in Panama, Taiwan, and global markets embarrassed the party. Since July, we have seen a quiet transition of force from China in the global politics. And they've been very quiet over the past few months. Now, you coordinate this with the Microsoft hack on July 7th affecting U.S. nuclear and DoD classified systems, Chinese support and weapon transfers into Venezuela, renegotiations of alliances with Russia, North Korea, and more recently India. If true, this could potentially bring about a war on the horizon. Xi and Trump had good relationship, yet China's deep state still holds massive power. What is happening in Venezuela right now is a proxy war being initiated by Chinese influence in Latin America. China has spent the last decade buying influence in Latin America through the Belt and Roads Initiative. Ports in Peru and Brazil, energy grids in Argentina and Ecuador, shipping and logistics hubs tied to the Panama Canal. Beijing's strategy: lockdown trade routes plus resources as part of its southern flank of the Belt and Roads Initiative. On top of that, China controls much of the illicit crime activity, including much of the drug trade and the supporting and funding of cartels in this region. Add election theft and bioweapons to this, and you have a direct threat to the United States of America. Trump's moves in Venezuela, military presence, plus sanctions, plus isolation of Maduro's regime, directly disrupt Chinese corridors of influence in the hemisphere and seek to dismantle them once and for all. We are about to see some massive moves. Watch Venezuela and Mexico. Now, obviously, since then, a lot of things have happened. Well, this came out from Gordon Chang and Jennifer Zheng yesterday. And this is like exactly what you would expect to see. Unverified reports: an insider in the Chinese Communist Party has reportedly disclosed that Xi Jinping suffered a sudden stroke earlier today. This was yesterday. His condition is said to be extremely critical, and emergency medical treatment is reportedly in progress. According to the same source, Premier Li Zhuang, who is currently on an official visit in North Korea, has allegedly been ordered to return to Beijing immediately. The information comes from a single insider source and has not yet been confirmed or verified. So I want you to take that in the context of what happened today. Okay? So that happened yesterday. So the first post was September 2nd that I read, that Xi's being removed from power. Then we hear the rumor that Xi suffered a massive stroke yesterday. Then today, we get China implementing massive tariffs on the United States. And this is exactly what you would see. Donald Trump said, some very strange things are happening in China. They are becoming very hostile and sending letters to countries throughout the world that they want to impose export controls on each and every element of production having to do with rare earths and virtually anything else they can think of, even if it's not manufactured in China. Nobody has ever seen anything like this, but essentially it would clog the markets and make life difficult for virtually every country in the world, especially for China. We've been contacted by other countries who are extremely angry at this great trade hostility, which came out of nowhere. Our relationship with China over the past 6 months has been a very good one, thereby making this move on trade as an even more surprising one. I've always felt that they've been lying in wait, and now, as usual, I've been proven right. There's no way that China should be allowed to hold the world captive, but that seems to have been their plan for quite some time, starting with the magnets and other elements that they have quietly amassed into somewhat of a monopoly position, a rather sinister and hostile move, to say the least. But the U.S. has monopoly positions also much stronger and more far-reaching than China's. I have not just chosen to use them. There is never a reason for me to do so until now. The letter they sent to many pages long and details with great specificity each and every element that they want to withhold from other nations. Things that were routine are no longer routine at all. I have not spoken to President Xi because there was no reason to do so. This was a real surprise, not only to me, but to all leaders of the free world. I was to meet President Xi in 2 weeks at APEC in South Korea, but now there seems to be no reason to do so. The Chinese letters were especially inappropriate in that this was the day that, after 3,000 years of bedlam and fighting, there is peace in the Middle East. Pissed China off, didn't it? I wonder if that timing was coincidental. Depending on what China says about the hostile order that they just put out, I will be forced as President of the United States of America to financially counter their move. For every element that they have been able to monopolize, we have two. I never thought it would come to this, but perhaps with all things, the time has come. Ultimately, through potential painful, it'll be a very good thing in the end for the United States of America. One of the policies that we are circulating at this moment is a massive increase in tariffs on Chinese products coming to the United States of America. There are many other countermeasures that are likewise under serious considerations. Thank you for your attention on this matter. I don't believe in coincidences. President Trump don't believe in coincidences. We understand that. So what was China's grip in the Middle East? Massive. We talked about this. We talked about China's grip on Iran. We talked about how China was funding radicalized terrorist groups, the Houthis and the Hamas and others throughout these regions. Qatar was actually one of those vessels of which Hamas was receiving funding directly from China. Donald Trump has cut off those pipelines by renegotiating better deals. And China's pissed because basically he shut off their transnational corridor, their land corridor, their railroad corridor directly into Europe, which would have cut them out of all maritime shipping lanes. They wouldn't have to use them anymore, which means that there can never be embargoes or sanctions put on them through those channels. But Xi Jinping wouldn't make this move. Xi Jinping's smarter than that. Part of the sovereign alliance in a context, right? So has Xi Jinping been undermined? Has Li Zhuang taken over? Second premier taken over? I think so. I think that this is a clear indication of that. And when Donald Trump says there's something strange going on in China, the day after it's reported from two people very well connected in China, Jennifer Zheng and Gordon Chang, coming out and saying that this is big. So Gordon Chang said, a stroke, real or not, would give Xi a way to exit the leadership without having to admit he lost an internal struggle and give the CCP an opportunity to cover up the turmoil evident most of this year. Reiterating what I just said from September 2nd. Really important because a new leadership coming into China, now that war, kinetic warfare, goes back on the table. And it becomes very, very serious situation. Xi and Trump had a relationship. Xi Guang and Trump don't have any relationship. And Xi Guang is a CCP communist hardliner. Brendan Carr from the FCC. The Communist Party of China is engaged in a multi-pronged effort to insert insecure devices into America's homes and businesses. So Operation Clean Carts, FCC effort has resulted in millions of listings for prohibited covered list items, including certain Huawei and ZTE gear being removed from leading e-commerce and online retailers. Now, this comes off of the 100,000 SIM cards and cell phones in New York City, the tri-state area, as well as New Jersey, over 200,000. These honeypotting operations, as well as coercion operations that China was running, spy operations directly in the United States of America, which 1940s, that would have been an act of war. We'll come back to this in a little bit because this is going to come up in some other news that we're going to get into. John Bolton is expected to be charged or indicted next week following the raid on his home. The acting U.S. Attorney of Maryland is moving quickly on claims that Bolton kept classified national security information in his home. So this could be the second arrest. And talking about honeypotting, you know, it's one thing that when myself or somebody else mentions it to you, but when you hear it from a sitting congressman, it makes all the difference.
He asked me about that, and I said, here's the way it works. It's the way it's worked in the past. The Russians even have a name for it, the honeypot. You and I don't go on overseas trips much. I've been to one trip, and that was prior. I've been on one Codell. I went to the Mexican border, and I went down one day with Andy Biggs, who's a good Mormon. He's hopefully maybe be the governor of Arizona. But he said, Burchett, we're going on this trip. I know you don't go on these things, but it's one like you'd like. We'll go down there and back. We'll stay in an awful motel. We'll eat some cheap Mexican food, some barbecue, and we'll put you on a plane back to Tennessee. And I said, all right, Andy, I'll do it. And but that's about it that I've done. And so what happens is you're overseas. You're being told how great you are. You're sitting at a bar, and they know what you're into, guys, gals, combination thereof, drugs, whatever, and they'll hook you up, and you're thinking you're the stud. Your wife's away. Nobody will know halfway around the world. You end up sleeping with somebody, and then you're out. Next day, you're flying back to America. You're back front row at the church. And then you're getting ready to make a key vote. And somebody comes up and whispers in your ear, hey, man, were you in a motel room with a girl in, Istanbul or something? And you think, oh, crap. He goes, man, we don't want that out. And he goes, no, we don't. We're not going to put that out. I said, if you can help us on this little bill, though, Now, that's the way they used to do it. And I'm not so certain they don't do that now. And it's funny, when I did that show with Benny, I caught hell.
You said that.
I said that. And members said, oh, you can't be saying that stuff, Burchett.
Why?
Truth hurts, I guess, for some people and other people.
Have you ever, by the way, just parenthetically, ever been attacked for saying something false, or only true things?
Only true things.
Yeah.
Only true things. So it's funny, the next week, Tucker, there was this huge, and I said, it always gets covered up. And everything gets covered up, and then somebody owns you. That's compromise. That'll be the title of my book if I ever write a book, Tim Burchett's Compromised Washington, because that's what happens, or it has happened in the past. The very next week, a Chinese prostitution ring was busted in where? Washington, D.C. And and it was listed in the paper. Who is their client list? High-ranking officials in government, elected officials, and lobbyists. Now, to me, that's all kinds of red flags going up all over the place. Well, and then the next week, the story disappeared.
Yeah.
Of course it did. But I think what they do now mostly is they have jobs. If you look at these guys and gals, and they have a wife and or girlfriend that'll work in one of these industries. I mean, $100,000 to a multi-billion-dollar corporation is nothing. I mean, it's an extra supply of paper clips or something. I think that's how they do it now. You have them in political offices, you have them in business offices, you have them all over. And
you have what?
They're employed, and so they own your ass. See, they're employed by these people. I'm sorry.
Get my wife a job, get my girl a job.
Get them both a job, and keep them separate. And, I know it's just common. I mean, I hear about it all the time. I hear about
very common.
They just talk, she works over at defense. She works over at justice. She works for this case, or he does, or somebody does, or they work back in the district for such and such. I mean, it's just human nature.
People that members of Congress are sleeping with, either legally or not, are employed by forces that want to control members of Congress.
That's what they used to do. And now I'm pretty sure, I knew of instances where that happened when I was in the legislature. And now they do it through the employment agencies.
Washington is compromised. It's really interesting when he said there at the end that the wife or the girlfriend or the daughter or the son get jobs with the lobbying firm, or they get jobs with this company, and they're making $100,000, $250,000 a year. But that's how they compromise them. That's the leverage that they begin to have over them. Oh, I wouldn't want your wife to lose that job and all those benefits. Wouldn't want your ex-wife to lose all those benefits. there has to be a system that they can implement in Washington, D.C. for Congress and Senate. So that shit doesn't happen. And it needs to happen tomorrow. And I hope that President Trump watched that interview with Tucker Carlson. You got to remember, Tucker works for Team Patriot. I don't give a shit what anybody says out there. This dude is having these people on to have these conversations to get it all out there. Remember, you can't tell the people the truth. You have to show it to them. And what we're seeing right there is Tucker lays the narrative, and then something big will happen, and you will see it. Today, $1.65 trillion was wiped out from the U.S. stock market. Woo! That's crazy. $1.65 trillion. This came in the midst of Donald Trump's 100%, 600% tariff threat to China, with China firing back with China firing first with their massive tariff increase. Gold has exploded past $4,000 after Trump threatened the new tariffs on China. My prediction, 10K gold by 2027. My best to you right now, buy the dip. Buy the dip. Absolutely buy the dip. Get in the crypto. And yes, it's time to schedule that crypto one-on-one if you haven't already. thecryptofuture.com. thecryptofuture.com. One-on-one with myself or Sean. And time to get started in cryptocurrency, people. All right. What did we have here? Let's see here. Wanted to check something. Oh, we only got a minute left. Okay. So yesterday, Vladimir Putin comes out and announces that Russia has a big announcement of a new weapon that they're going to be releasing, right? They're going to show the world this new weapon. We got a new weapon. It's crazy. It's big. It's huge. Nobody has anything like it. 12 hours later, massive explosion reported at major Russian space facility near Moscow. An accident has been reported at Russia's Scientific and Testing Center, the rocket and space industry, and Persevet near Moscow, one of the Roscosmos key hubs for testing rocket engines and spacecraft. The facility plays a critical role in certifying Russia's rockets and space vehicles before launch. No details have emerged since then. But don't you find it a little odd that Russia announces a new weapon on the same day a massive explosion from a Russian space facility? Sounds like someone didn't want Russia to have that weapon and let it reach space. That's just my thoughts. Russia's going to, well, the weapon is delayed 6 months now. It's interesting, too, because Putin has had a lot to say. He congratulated President Trump on Middle East peace. He came out and recommended to President Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. But Putin also confirmed that the discussions with Trump in Alaska remain our basis for peace. We did not reveal what exactly was discussed during the Anchorage meeting. We said that there is a general understanding from the United States and understanding on the Russian side about where we can move and what can be done to resolve this conflict through peaceful means. And those are not simple issues. So we agreed with Trump that I will go back to Moscow and I'll think about the issues and consult with my allies. And he said the same. This is a complicated set of questions that require a thorough review, but we are still grounded in that discussion that took place in Anchorage. We don't change anything here, and we still believe there is work to be done on all sides, but we are still within the framework of the agreements reached in Alaska. Putin reiterating the sovereign alliance, the connection to Trump. We're still there. Don't forget Kirill Dmitriev, his special envoy, meeting with Rep. Luna next week. Been putting a whole bunch of Q stuff, right? I can pull it up real quick. This is Kirill Dmitriev for you. 5:43 p.m. from dark to light. 5:43 on the Q boards, the Great Awakening. Okay? That's what you're seeing from Putin's special envoy. Guys with Putin every day. Why? Because it's a freaking sovereign alliance, people. This is direct coordination. Now, this was crazy interesting. MJ says, would you look at that? Melania wore the same exact outfit today she did during the time that President Trump said the calm before the storm in the very first air cue. Kind of feels stormy, don't it? Some background a lot of people don't know is when Trump asked, do you know what this represents? This he was referring to was the cue. He came up and he goes, do you guys know what this represents? Look at his hands. This is the very first air cue. This happened on October 5th, 2017. 23 days prior to the first Q post, beginning the greatest military civilian intelligence alliance operation, 4511, the world has ever seen. Actually, the operation began way before that, but this is the intelligence or the ability to take over the information warfare that happened there. We are part of something very special. Don't forget that. And Trump right there, Melania, and then Melania today wearing the same one. Now, what was Melania talking about? Oh, this is very interesting. Now, I want you to think about Kirill Dmitriev when you start to listen to what Melania says today. Okay? And listen to everything she says here.
Much has unfolded since President Putin received my letter last August. He responded in writing, signaling a willingness to engage with me directly and outlining details regarding the Ukrainian children residing in Russia. And since then, President Putin and I have had an open channel of communication regarding the welfare of these children. For the past 3 months, both sides have participated in several back-channel meetings and calls, all in good faith. We have agreed to cooperate with each other for the benefit of all people involved in this war. My representative has been working directly with President Putin's team to ensure the safe reunification of children with their families between Russia and Ukraine. In fact, 8 children have been rejoined with their families during the past 24 hours.
Back channels are open. Some interesting comps. I mean, she's wearing the same outfit that she had on with the storm video with Trump. And she just said that I have been in direct communication with Putin, and my team is working through back channels with Putin's team to stop human and child sex trafficking. And then Russia is bombing the shit out of various different places in Ukraine. Let's put 2 and 2 together here. Oh, it's starting to make sense. Taking out that deep state infrastructure. I would even go as far as that. I bet you there is some World War II underground military bases in Ukraine that are being raided and annihilated. And that's what Russia has been doing. But you just can't come out and say it because of what's really happening in there. Tucker Carlson had an interview with Tim Burchett today. And there were some interesting things said. I haven't watched all of it yet, but UFOs are real. And they're here. Government forces are selling lies to get the public to not talk about UFOs, and they've been doing it for 70 years. Why is that? How come they are so desperate to keep people from the truth? Do they know more than they're letting on? Is the threat greater than anybody imagines? Representative Tim Burchett is one of the few political figures earnestly interested in uncovering what's really happening. And he joined Tucker Carlson's show today to discuss this and figure out what is actually going on. Let's hear a little clip of this and see what they are talking about.
Why is it so hard for somebody in authority, either in the White House or in congressional leadership, to say, we want this information, we want it by the close of business today, or else you're fired, or we're going to send soldiers in and get the information? I don't, why is that hard?
I still think it's profitable for them. I think there's too much money. And it goes too deep. And you have a lot of soldiers, they're not literally soldiers, but people that just follow orders. And they think, and they said it's national security. They think it's national security.
So it sounds like you have no confidence that this stuff's going to emerge.
No, I have zero confidence on this side of when I leave this earth, I'll know then, but
you will instantly.
But I don't have any confidence in anybody in Washington currently. I have confidence in Trump. I really do. I think if we can talk to him seriously about this for a short amount of time, I think he'll just tell him to jam it. We're going to do it.
They're real. They're very, very real. And see, people in Congress and Senate, they know this. But the government isn't budging. The government isn't letting it out there. Let me tell you a little story. See, there's more than just the war that we see going on behind the scenes. And I've laid this out in different fashions before, because this is at least the perspective that I take on what happened. The CIA was created months after the 1947, July 7th, 1947 Roswell crash. Now, what crashed in Roswell? I don't know. We can only speculate. If we take Jesse Marcel's testimony, it was something not of this earth, or it did not appear to be of this earth. You got things like the Bugha Sphere that have been recovered, that have been shown. They're very, very old, 12,700 years old, and it doesn't appear to be built by anything that we could do today. There is a occult and esoteric connection to all of this, as we've discussed before. But I want you to see that the reason why Hillary Clinton was selling off SAP programs, right? 38 SAP programs that Hillary Clinton leaked in her emails that Jake Sullivan put her on the email chain of, that she was never supposed to be even included on, which were the universities and professors that were getting the special access program grants from the NSF or from the DOD or the DOE to reverse engineer this type of technology, nanotech, AI, so forth. She was sending through proxy of her home server to a Gmail address, which ended up in China, and China went and then honeypotted those professors and universities and stole the research. The reason why that happened tells you something very, very, very important. I got to comment on this real quick. I can't believe no one cares that Trump is purposely botching the Kirk border investigation for a peace deal. He's using it for leverage. I disagree with you. I don't think we truly understand what's happening in the backdrop, but I can tell you that if you've listened to my show for the last few weeks, you can understand that there's a clear indication that Trump is putting the hammer down on Israel for a reason, and that there is more going on than we can actually tell. And you have some very powerful people and high-level people that are actually talking about this. But going back into what I was talking about, there's one thing that you can clearly see about the idea that Hillary Clinton was selling off SAP programs, which were reverse engineering technology. And this is one of the things that I've done through my research that I show, right? Now I want you to go back a little bit. Go back to the 1990s when Bill Clinton ran on the idea that I'm going to declassify everything there is to know about UFOs. Did you know that outgoing President George Herbert Walker Bush wouldn't let him have it? They wouldn't release anything to him. Clinton got sidelined when he was president. John Podesta was his chief of staff. Podesta has been massively involved in the UFO disclosure phenomena over the last 20 years. He joined To the Stars Academy with Hal Puthoff and Tom DeLonge back in 2016 or 2018 when they launched it. And they lobbied to get this information released. Well, what does that tell you? It tells you that they are not read into the programs, that they do not have access to that technology even when they were in positions of power. That is such one of the most important points that nobody ever touches on, because what it shows you is that there's factions, and that one faction has this technology and the reverse engineering it, and they're not letting these son of a bitches anywhere near it. My thoughts on it? In the 1940s, a secret agency was created within the government that was hidden within the defense industry. The only people that get recruited into it are legacy families within the defense industry, as well as very, very little military oversight, or maybe some type of fraternal military oversight that occurs, a passing down of the baton over and over and over again, but only trustworthy patriots are entered into this type of program, a MIB, Men in Black type of program or something of that nature. But what it is about the preservation of this technology for the future, and then not allow it to get into the hands of the deep state, of the evil of this world. And here's the thing, is if the people like Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton had that high level of technology, don't you think they would have used it? Don't you think that this world would be a different place right now, that we'd be living in the AI slave matrix prison? We absolutely would, but we're not. Which tells you that there's a mechanism of control over all of that information, over all of that technology, that is almost ungraspable. That the deep state can't even touch it, even when they're in power for 8 years, 12 years. That's pretty huge. And see, that's the reason why that we're seeing all this. This is what Q was all about. The original investigations into the deep state came about to find out who was selling off SAP programs, to find out who was trying to undermine these projects that we had, these black projects that we were having, to reverse engineer this technology. Because the preservation of that technology is being slowly released over time, because you can't just implement it into humanity on day one, because if you do that, you have massive, massive problems culturally and socially. But there's a protectorate out there, a group of men and women, of families that have preserved this information, this technology, and these programs for a very long time. And I think what we are seeing right now with that Trump administration is a lot of those same people in power. And I believe that we've come to the time that once we decimate the deep state, once we decimate the globalists, and by the way, you don't have to go out and arrest the globalists to decimate them. You simply remove their infrastructure. You remove their power to do anything else, and you remove their financing mechanisms, and you prosecute those who were involved in it. So the next time that they ask for a bank of help, and by coercing or forcing them, they don't do it because they know the repercussions of it. But I think that once we have world peace, like we're close to it, by the way, we're very close to it, that some of this technology is going to be revealed. And I think this is what Donald Trump's talking about. It's like, we have amazing technology, 40, 50 years more advanced than anything you know. And I think that that's an understatement. And what Congress and Senate, what Tim Burchett is saying, the reason why Luna and Burchett and all of them get the runaround is because they can't be trusted. Like Tim Burchett was just saying, there's honeypot operations going on everywhere. Congress and Senate is absolutely leveraged, whether it's their daughters or sons or their girlfriends or their wives having a job at corporation A, B, and C, that they can get to Congress very easily. With that being said, they're not going to release that information to Congress. It doesn't matter how many committee meetings they have or open discussions they have on this stuff. Congress is not going to be the one that bring it out there. It's only going to be them. Now, what else do I believe about these people? I believe they operate a secret space program, and that's one of the main reasons why it can't be infiltrated. That their area of operation isn't on the planet. Or if it is, it's somewhere that nobody can reach because the technology is so far advanced. I believe that they reverse engineered this technology decades ago, and that they set up an infrastructure that was impenetrable. My thoughts. Thought I'd put that out there. I think it's important. All right. This weekend I will be playing. What will I be playing? The Alpha, Nino, and mine interview roundtable that we did. Highly packed full of stuff. I'll probably be playing that tomorrow. And so, Dawn, yes, Trump's uncle with Tesla data. Yep, John Trump. And I actually have to write that down because I want to write something up on this. Okay. But guys, I will be out of here for tonight, and I will see you guys all next time. I'm going to leave you with this brilliant piece